Hello, friends. Mark, Heath, Stuart, Watson here. There are 4 games left in Ipswich Town season. Realistically, the season, sadly, is over for Ipswich Town. But we want to give you things to look for in these last 4 games, something of interest in these last 4 games. So Stuart has put together a little list, which we're going to talk our way through now. Stuart, what's number 1 on your list of things to look for in Town's last 4 games of this season?
Number 1 on my list is for Ipswich Town to hit a few little points targets to better some things that they've done in the past. 69 points they finished on last season in 9th place. They need 5 more to beat that tally to get to 70. So number 1 is to beat that. Number 2 would be to finish above 9th. It was where they were in the table when COVID called 1920 season to a halt. It's where they finished last season. It's where they sit now. So finish above 9th. You're going to need a bit more than 5 points to do that, probably 8 or 9 points. So that's probably the next on the tick list in terms of points targets. 9 points would get you to 74. And 74 is normally the magic marker that I think over the last 10, 11 seasons always gets you into 6th at least. This season it's not, but I think if Ipswich could hit that 74-point marker, that would be another really good one to hit. So there's a few little points targets to hit there. In amongst that, can they win 3 in a row? Ipswich haven't won 3 games in a row all season. So out of these final 4, can they win 3 in a row? And also, can they finish in the top 6 under Kieran McKenna? And what I mean by that is the second half of the season table. McKenna will have had 23 games in charge, exactly half of a season. They're 5th in the form table under McKenna at the moment. It's very tight. So make sure you can finish top 6 under McKenna, and that will give everyone a bit of belief that they could do it over 46 games next season.
What a start. There's 4 for the price of 1 right there in terms of point targets and stuff over the last 4 games. How about number 2 on your list then, Stu?
Bit of a shorter one, this one. Sell some season tickets. 4 games left. 2 of them are at home. Wigan next Tuesday night, and then Charlton at home to finish. Ipswich have had 10 games in a row with 20,000 plus crowds at Portman Road. Can they get 2 more? Can they sell a few more season tickets? They've got off to a flying start with, I think, 2,000 or so sold within the first 48 hours. Keep that feel-good factor going at Portman Road and make sure that Portman Road is rocking going into next season.
Beating Wigan at home on Tuesday would be a serious statement of intent, wouldn't it? The champions-elect. We will see. Certainly a lot of good feeling going into next season. Lots of season tickets still to be sold, I'm sure. That's 2 down then, Stu. How about number 3 on your list?
Which players can earn themselves some new deals? We've got 4 loan players coming towards the end of their deals. Dominic Thompson, Tyreek Backinson, Bursant Selina and Macaulay Bonne. And then a few players coming to the end of their contracts as well. Tom Carroll, Sonny Aluko, James Norwood, and Caden Jackson as well. Jackson's obviously injured. I think Caden Jackson has probably done enough up until that injury to earn himself a new deal. It's not so black and white with all of those other players that I mentioned there. So it's going to be interesting to see, A, how much game time goes to those players over the last 4, and B, whether any of them can make sure they get themselves a new deal or certainly a future at Ipswich Town. I'm sure Kieran McKenna has got some pretty firm thoughts as to which way he's going to go with those players, but it's not impossible that 1 or 2 are still kind of could tip one way or another over these last 4 games. So those players there that I've mentioned, keep an eye out for their performances, and let's see who stays and who goes this summer.
Are there any you yourself are kind of not made your mind upon over the last 4 games? Do you want to, any names you can highlight over these last 4 that you're looking for big things from?
I'm interested to see how much game time James Norwood gets. The striker position is one that I think will have a fairly hefty revamp in the summer, but Norwood's played the last 3 games in a row. He obviously scored at Shrewsbury at the weekend, has had a bit of praise from McKenna recently, so might just be an opportunity for James to at least trigger that extra year on his contract. Tyreek Backinson, I wasn't too impressed in the early days, but he's really, really grown on me as the games have gone by. He certainly looked better than Tom Carroll did when he came into the team for that Cambridge game recently. So I think he might be giving himself a chance of Ipswich making that loan deal permanent, and that there is an option in that deal to do so. I think we know everything that we know about Bersant Selena now. I don't think that there's anything that he can or can't do in these last 4 games that will change his situation. Dominic Thompson's definitely one that's kind of up in the air for me. Dropped out of the team. Matt Penny played ahead of him last weekend. He's one that I think has got a bit of work to do if he's going to make Ipswich go for him on a permanent basis in the summer.
Okay, time will tell. We will do a separate kind of specialised video / pod just looking at that issue out of contract players and loans in due course. So keep an eye out for that. 3 down then, Stu. What's 4th on your list?
Are we going to see any academy, homegrown talent play over these last 4 games? I think immediately you have to think about Elkan Baggott, given Cameron Burgess's rather daft dismissal at Shrewsbury last weekend. The door is ajar for him. Elkan's been on the bench a couple of times recently. He wasn't last weekend, which meant that Dominic Thompson, benched, as I said, came on and played on the left side of that back 3. But I just wonder whether Elkan might be the one that gets the nod at Rotherham on Saturday. Rotherham, they're big, they're direct, they're physical. Elkan Baggott is 6'4". He's left-footed, so he could slip in on the left side of that back 3 quite comfortably. Has been doing very well for the under-23s recently. So he would be the one that I would imagine that has got the best chance over this Easter weekend. Kieran McKenna has made it pretty clear that he's not going to rush to experiment. Ipswich have got a big say in the automatic promotion spots, and I think they owe the league to go as strong as they can over these 2 games against Rotherham and Wigan. But after that comes 2 dead rubbers against Crewe, Bottom, Down, and then Charlton at home on the final day. Those are the 2 games where you just wonder whether Cameron Humphreys, Tawanda Chirewa, Tyrese Simpson get some game time. I'm not saying from the start necessarily, but maybe on the bench and coming on and getting a few minutes. So that's something to look out for.
How would you feel about the Baggott thing? Because clearly Rotherham away is a big game to throw a young lad into. There's a school of thought, isn't there, that you don't want to push these players into big games and kind of break their confidence too soon. But he's a guy who's been around the side. He's played international football. Would you have any qualms about chucking him in at Rotherham?
Given the circumstances of the season being pretty much over for Ipswich and that defence having been sort of so solid recently, he'd have some good players around him in terms of Luke Wolfenden, Janoy Danasi, and a good goalkeeper behind him in Walton. Then why not? I think his qualities might be quite well suited to Rotherham, but we'll see. I find that a really hard one to call because Dominic Thompson can play on sort of the left side of a back 3 as well. He did last weekend, so we'll see. I'd quite like to see Elkan. Be interested to see how he gets on.
100%. I think a lot of fans would agree with you there. 4 down then, Stu. What's your final thing that people can look out for then in these last 4 games?
There's just a few I'll put this under subplots really, and there's a few little things. Can Ipswich win a game on TV? The game is against Rotherham on Saturday, 12:30 kickoff. That's why the games have been moved to Saturday, Tuesday. We all know Ipswich's record on the box is dreadful. 3 wins in the last 34. So if you could win one on Saturday, that would give the feeling that Kieran McKenna is going to kind of change a few things that have been hoodoos that have been hanging over the club's head. Derailing Rotherham. There's a little bit of an added bonus here that Paul Warne, their manager, is a big Norwich fan. He's from Norfolk, so can Ipswich have a say in who goes up automatically? Rotherham have given them a few humblings in League One since relegation, so it'd be nice to maybe stick a spanner in their spokes maybe on Saturday. Couple of ex-players from an Ipswich Town point of view to look out for. Will Keane has scored 21 goals for Wigan this season. He's someone that Ipswich are going to have to keep an eye on very closely next Tuesday night. And then on the final day, Scott Fraser returns to Portman Road with Charlton, someone who obviously left in January and talked about wanting to be the main man and going and playing every week. It's not happened actually for him at Charlton in that respect. He's not started their last 2 games. So whether he plays or not for Charlton at Portman Road will be interesting, and the sort of reception he gets from Ipswich fans will be interesting there. And my final little subplot is whether any opposition player from these final 4 games just jumps off the page and makes Ipswich Town think, we quite fancy him in the summer. If you remember, Wes Burns was very good for Fleetwood at Portman Road, final game of last season, scored a goal, and obviously the rest is history there. So maybe someone from these final 4 games might just do the same.
Blimey, that's quite the list then, Stuart. I referred to them being dead rubbers essentially the last 4 games, but there's more than enough to keep people interested, isn't there? Thanks very much for that list. That's Stuart Watson, Mark Heath, and we'll see you again in the next video.